Hello, this is part 2 of finishing the unusual plate shape for your plate shape. And this is the one where we have created a coil kind of a mold with a nice slanted beveled area, and then even kind of an area for a rim. And this is what I've done with it so far. I've scalloped the edge by simply moving my finger up uniformly across the bottom. And now I need to flip it. It is set up to leather hard. And so we're going to set that down, and I'm going to move this temporarily. There's a mold I can use more than once and have used more than once. I could bisque fire it, but I don't know that I'm going to do that. I think I'll recycle it and maybe make a new one. So you can see on the bottom edge here, I have some rough areas. So I'm going to get a dampened sponge and just kind of rub those out a little bit. Use my finger to kind of clean that up. And I've done some of this by lifting the edge and scalloping it early on, lifting it off of the edge of the mold, that is. And now I'm just going to kind of clean that up. I'm going to dampen my rib and compress this shape a little bit on the surface. And come back in with my sponge. Got a little iron right there. All right, now I'm going to make my foot. And the foot is going to run along this point right here. So it's coming in from the rim, but this would be the area where the weight would fall. And that way, if I go too far in, I can end up with problems with it cracking or slumping or warping. But this way, it's just a little bit cleaner. So I'm using my serrated rib, and I'm running that along there. And then I'm going to use the slip in the bottom of my bucket, and I'm going to brush that onto, oh, wrong side, there we go. I'm going to brush that on to that area. You can use your fingers or sponge that on. If you don't have slip, remember that you can dry out thin pieces of clay, add it to a bit of water, and you can make your own slip right at home. It's pretty simple and works pretty well. All right, so I'm just going to work my way around, adding that slip on my brush. All right, so just a little bit more in these areas here. We're adding that, and we're rehydrating that area that we're adding wet clay to, but also we're really marking off that area and adding that slip. That slip is so dense that it doesn't allow you to trap air. So now I need to roll a really uniform coil. I'm just starting out with my hands, but we're just going to slide this over temporarily. And I'm going to roll some of that here. All right. So I'm starting in the center and moving my hands outward. And this is a little bit longer than my canvas, so I just cut off the extra. And I want to keep it fairly rounded for adding it on. And I will show you why in just a second. All right, we're going to set that one aside and finish this one. Hopefully that'll be enough, otherwise I'll just have to make a little bit more coil. So I want it as uniform as possible going all the way around. And then I'm just going to gently press that on, following the contour along the edge. And I'm going to smoosh that down right there. And that is where I'm going to add another piece so they meet up. Looks like it's going to be close, but not quite. So just one more little coil, flattening those two edges. All right. Not thick enough. I want it to be the same as the other. Then there's less cleanup for me later. So I'm adding that on, and I'll pinch off the extra. I'm going to gently tap that to make sure that it's secure. And then I'm going to start on the outside, smoothing that downward. And I'm just using my thumb. You could use your tools. I just like using the ends of my fingers. I can feel the clay a little bit better. That's where your nerve endings are. Yeah, tips of your fingers. All right, so made our way around that way. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. There's some cleanup with this, but it is a relatively quick way of making an unusual shape. And, on the wheel, you can make some really great functional plates that are even. But if you're working from home or you don't have a wheel, then this is a really great way to take advantage of being, working as a hand builder and making different shapes. Or even if you do have a wheel at home, why not get out of the cylindrical once in a while and try this. So I'm just smoothing that out using the round side of my rib because that's what fits into that area pretty well. And now I'm going to come back in with a damp sponge. And I'm simply draping that over the edge like that so that it's kind of caged in. And I'm really working all areas, the top and both sides at the same time. Now this is, kind of a larger platter shape, but if you wanted to make a tray this way, you would simply make it more narrow and smaller. If you're making a tray for cream and sugar, it would just be a longer, more narrow one. It doesn't have to be an unusual shape like an animal head. It could be an unusual shape, just, like an oval. So don't feel like you are, or an insect maybe. I mean, it could be different. This is just, an idea. All right, so now this has got to set up to leather hard. So I'm not going to flip it at this moment. I'm going to set it aside, but I do want to show you a finished and painted one. So this is one that I've already painted that I made with the same mold. And I'm going to flip that. There's the bottom, there's the foot. So there's kind of a surprise under the foot as well. Inside of the foot, it's not something you would use, it's just, that's where it's going to rest. Of course, that's the foot once it's set up. And again, just the other side with the scalloped edge. Playing around with a little sgraffito, it's white clay, so I added the underglaze and then scratched down to the clay underneath. All right, so that's how to make an unusual